Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for our 85th CFM anniversary get-together, virtually, live, in person, and all of the above. But we're so glad that you could join us this afternoon. We hope that you're comfortable sitting back in your chair. We're in your favorite chair, living room. We have a fun-filled hour. We're fortunate to have some very special guests this afternoon. And so we're going to get started, and I'll turn it over for a moment to Tyler to say a few words.
Thanks, Mossie. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. What a historic day. It's certainly a great celebration that we can, even though we can't be in person, we're here and have some jam-packed videos and exciting guests this evening to visit, to celebrate, and look back on our history and all the great things that we've accomplished and where we're going forward. So sit back and enjoy this next hour. And I want to, we've got the 85th challenge that's out there. And so if you're willing to donate $85 to us, we're going to give you a CFM mug and a pin to commemorate this historic 85th anniversary. So consider doing that. They'll throw the link up in the chat, and if you donate $85 or more, we'll get a cup and a pen sent your way. So again, thank you all for your support, and we're going to jump right into these videos here pretty soon. So again, we're glad you're with us, and enjoy the hour.
Thanks, Tyler. Our first special guest is our good friend, partner, life member, Director of Missouri Department of Conservation, Sara Pauley.
Hello, it's Sara Pauley, your director at the Missouri Department of Conservation, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share a few remarks to celebrate the Conservation Federation of Missouri. CFM is 85 years old, or 85 years young, depending on your perspective. Isn't that an incredible accomplishment, especially when you think about all of the work and milestones and accomplishments that have happened in those 85 years? This very day, on September 10, 1935, a historic moment was happening at the Tiger Hotel in Columbia, where conservationists and sportsmen gathered from all over Missouri to form the Conservation Federation of Missouri. In the Missouri Department of Conservation's The First 50 Years book, it says this about September 10. One wonders if the nearly 100 sportsmen assembled were aware that they were making conservation history as they launched their new organization. We don't even know the names, except for a handful of leaders, of those who gathered that late summer day in Columbia. But they launched a chain of events that no other state had ever done before or since. It was a conservation milestone. Now that day, they also elected E. Sidney Stevens as the first CFM president, and he began the process of appointing a committee to draft a constitutional amendment to form a 4-person, nonpartisan commission to restore Missouri's wildlife and forests, which had been decimated and over-harvested for decades. After a vote by Missourians on this amendment in the 1936 general election, the Missouri Conservation Commission would be formed, and, of course, the Missouri Department of Conservation as well. I share a little bit about this history because I think it's worth noting the vision of the people that came together on this day 85 years ago to solve a conservation crisis in Missouri. They formed a group so they could be better and stronger together, and to focus longer term on how they could positively impact conservation, not just today thinking, but future thinking. They created this Missouri model of conservation that gave permanence to the leadership of the Missouri Conservation Commission, void of the changing tide of politics that had impacted progress so many decades prior, to make advancements in conservation that were more than just hunting and fishing, but forestry, songbirds, and other wildlife species. This permanence, with a clear mandate and then eventually dedicated funding, has been, and is now so critical to our conservation story and success in Missouri. Now, many moons ago, and on a more personal note, when I was a teenager, I used to participate in cotillion dances. For those that are familiar, I'm sorry, it was just one of those rites of passage that you had to get through growing up. And for those unfamiliar, they were these formal dances where you dressed up and you had dance cards with a list of your dance partners for the evening. You always remember the really great dance partners, and you pray that they would be on your dance card somewhere. Well, CFM has been that incredible dance partner for us these last 85 years. The groundwork they laid and their confident dance steps allowed us, and I know many others, to be created and to thrive in this conservation community. They've made history in so many ways, but they're humble in their approach and collaborative in their partnership model. So what does it mean for us moving forward? How do we grow to 86 years and beyond? Well, for one, we must constantly keep evolving. The world has changed and is changing. Conservation has grown, both the opportunities as well as the challenges in the last 85 years, and we as partners have evolved as well. For one thing, there's no longer dance cards written on small pieces of paper hidden in your pocket. Now your dance moves are all recorded on TikTok and they're shared millions of miles away within minutes. When it comes to partnerships, I think we have the opportunity to continue to strengthen our current relationships, but also to broaden the conservation tent and invite even more partners in. These past few months, we have seen record numbers of people flock to outdoor places, including conservation areas, state parks, trout parks, and camping spots. And bicycles, kayaks, and camping equipment, they're sold out in some areas. People are experiencing nature and conservation for the first time, work that we've been spending 85 years immersed in. And they are seeing what a positive benefit it can make in their lives. They are personally impacted, and we want to continue to invite them to be part of that connection and conversation. We've got work to do reaching new folks, some who have no idea who we are and what we do, and we certainly see the importance and value of these new connections. We've also got to stay vigilant and focused on our conservation mission, including our long-term priorities and how that positively impacts the citizens of Missouri. Sometimes we can easily get sidetracked by rhetoric and those wanting to derail or maybe even personally attack the work of our conservation partners. But time and time again, we have seen our conservation family come together to protect Missouri's conservation model and to ensure its continued legacy going forward, just like Missouri citizens did in 1936. Lastly, in a world full of really hard things right now, I think it's incredibly important to be grateful and acknowledge those around us that make the world a better place, maybe even brighter. I am so grateful for CFM, for their hardworking staff, and their strong members that make a difference every day. Your work over the last 85 years has made a huge impact in our conservation story, and I can't wait to see all of the great things that are ahead. Thank you for coordinating this celebration just like you did 85 years ago to ensure that conservation in Missouri is coordinated, celebrated, and carried forward to future generations. 85 years, what a conservation milestone. Please keep up the incredible work.
Thank you, Sara. What a wonderful video. We certainly appreciate your leadership and all that you do, not only for the state, but across the nation. Your agency is just so brilliant and all the things that you do and your team. And we know you couldn't be here tonight because you were working across the nation with other agencies. And so thank you for all that you do at the department and on the level that you do to support us. So certainly appreciate it. And those nature connections and those outdoors, she's so right. It's just so important to get out and to do those things. And Missouri's had a busy year because people are outdoors and they're enjoying nature. And it is awesome to see just all the connections that people are having with parks and nature right now. So thank you for your important message this evening and appreciate all your support. Now our next speaker is also an avid sportsman and outdoors person, and is the Lieutenant Governor of this state. I was recently able to join Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe in his office, and he was able to record a message to share with you all this evening. So now we'd like to play that one for you, and he had a special message for you. Good evening and welcome on this historic anniversary of the Conservation Federation of Missouri. We're here in Lieutenant Governor Mike Kehoe's office to present him with his plaque and thank you for all your wonderful conservation efforts. On behalf of the Conservation Federation and our entire family, thank you for your support over the years and appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you so much, Tyler. It's an honor to get this from CFM. I've been honored to be awarded a few things over the years, and it's been a really interesting journey for me in my kind of growth and learning about the conservation movement. You know, I'm like a lot of other people, many years ago, as a younger person, I wasn't thinking about conservation at all, but I had a journey 25 plus years ago out west and learned a lot about our great president, Teddy Roosevelt, who was really the start, the godfather of the conservation movement. And then through my journey into politics, I met other great folks, conservation commissioners over the years that have just done great things for our state. Our current conservation director, Sara Pauley, doing great things. You meet great people like Johnny Morris, who his heart is so much in conservation, you can't even believe the resources that he has provided our citizens in our state to make people aware of how important conservation is. And then I would say the big thing that probably pushed me over the edge is I'm the father of four. And all of a sudden you start to think, what are you leaving them? What are the activities that they're going to be able to do? What are they going to be able to enjoy about this great earth that God has provided us? And you know, when I look at 85 years, it seems somewhat appropriate in maybe a weird way that with the challenges we've had with the pandemic, people have all of a sudden decided to go back out and see what is out and explore. And we're finding folks, not just in our state, in our beautiful state parks and our beautiful conservation areas, but all over our country, getting back out and understanding what this gift is and how important conservation means to them. And just a year ago, they were driving by those places on a freeway without even thinking about putting their blinker signal on and turning into. So the interesting effect of the COVID crisis is I really believe and truly believe it's brought people closer to the conservation movement and a greater understanding on how important that is. We need to make sure we protect our natural habitats and our natural resources so that as folks go forward, generations from now, long after I'm dead and gone, but hopefully my kids and grandkids and their grandkids, they can experience what we're able to experience today. But it all starts with efforts in organizations like the Conservation Federation. When Tyler first called me and said he was going to come interview me today, I thought maybe I hadn't paid my dues. So I'm glad to report that I have paid my dues and I've been a long-standing member. But I would encourage you to make sure that folks understand it's operations and organizations like you, members like you, who protect those assets. And the more we can get people to understand it takes resources to protect the assets that our great country and earth has, the better off we're going to be for generations to come. So thank you for allowing me to join you virtually. I'm sure you join me, and we all do a lot of virtual meetings and virtual seminars and virtual things these days. But it's great that we haven't given up that 85th anniversary opportunity to talk about what a great organization you have, how proud I am to be a part of it and to receive the various awards I have over the years, and that I hope we continue for at least another 85 years. Have a great evening and God bless.
What a great member that Lieutenant Governor Kehoe is, and a great supporter, and just a wonderful human being, and farmer and hunter and avid outdoorsman and supporter of conservation that he has been, through his years in the Senate and now as Lieutenant Governor. And we're certainly, it's a beautiful message that he had for us tonight, and we're certainly glad to have him on as one of our supporters. So moving right along, we've got up next is our former assistant director and life member, and also he was the editor for a long time of the CFM newsletter, Charlie Davidson. Charlie came in recently and we were able to sit down and ask him some questions and have him reflect on his time at not only at CFM but as conservation, and he's got a special message to share with you this evening. So here's Charlie Davidson.
Oh, I think this is a very historic anniversary. I want to say congratulations to all the Federation members. It's been the backbone of conservation in this state, made Missouri the best conservation state in the nation. And that's simply because we've had a great citizen-based conservation group, Conservation Federation of Missouri. Started back in 1971. So it was a great 30 years that I had with the Federation, and then after that I worked for the Foundation for several years after that. So it's been a very, very much fun, enjoyed it all. It's been a great time to work with all these great conservationists over the years. Oh, we took meetings with every possible group and talked to all of our affiliates, of course, and got them enthused about carrying petitions and everything. And we kind of divided up the state into the different congressional districts. And I'd work some and Ed would work some, and we coordinated that. But we had so many meetings, I can imagine how many we had. And it was just a lot of fun to go around and talk to the group and see how excited they were about this program. Well, the challenges were just finding enough time to get around, you know. It was it's a big project to get a petition passed in this state. And we worked shopping centers and go to every event we possibly could and set up booths and get signatures, big sports shows and everything. In front of Walmarts, we had many people involved that would go to the state fair, and we'd line up workers for all the different fairs. So it was quite a project. Well, we had the University of Missouri helped with a funding study. And they came out with the idea that a penny tax on soft drinks would be an ideal way. And we turned it over to a committee of the Federation to write that. The problem was we left out what they call an enacting clause. And because that enacting clause wasn't in there, after we'd obtained the signatures and done all the hard work, why, it was thrown out because we didn't have that enacting clause. And when we came back and looked at it, we realized that the soda pop industry had quite a bit of money, and they were going to put up a tough fight. And it also had other disadvantages with the possibility of inflation and everything. So at that time we reconsidered and decided to go with the 1/8 cent conservation sales tax. Oh, there were wilderness issues, establishing the wilderness areas in Missouri, getting the first pollution legislation through the legislature. That was done. Parks legislation, which came later, of course, when we get to the 1/10 cent for the state parks and soil conservation. And those were all issues. There were a great many issues related to wildlife, and legislature seemed to always want to get in on the act, but since we had such a good science-based conservation department, we were always able to keep those issues at bay. I remember one funny incident when Ed Stegner was a very impressive person. He's quite tall, and we went over to the legislature, and they had a little room down in the basement where you could get coffee and everything, and going up on the elevator, and we got on the elevator, and Ed was over there so much. I guess there was a young freshman legislator who didn't know, and when we got on, he looked up at Ed and said, "Well, hi, Senator," and Ed didn't say a thing all the way up. He kind of nudged me, "Don't say anything, let him think that." So Ed was very well known throughout the Capitol, and some of the freshmen thought he was one of the senators. So that was kind of funny, I thought. There were a lot of them. I remember one of the some of them can't tell very well. But I stayed down in St. Louis for a while during the petition drive, getting signatures. And I stayed in with Cy Seiler, who was a well-known conservationist in St. Louis. And we had a couple funny incidents. One of them, I accidentally let his dog out, and he was in heat, and the neighbor's dog got in with him, but those were some of the problems. We had another, one of our petition carriers was working at a store, and a lady came out, and just as he turned around, she got him by the cart right in the stomach, and bowled him over. So we had a lot of funny things to tell about. Well, that was, we were old school in those days. We'd get the galleys and paste them up, you know, by hand rather than digital like they do today. And we get stories from all over. We'd have our chapter send in their, what they were doing. We'd do items on our new directors, do items from the National Wildlife Federation, from the Missouri Department of Conservation. We'd get articles. We have a lot of good writers in this state, outdoor writers. They'd submit things from time to time. And we had a good relationship with the department, so they helped us with the photographic stuff. So it was a different time back then. We sent the issue to every member, well over 20,000 back then. Main purpose is still to bring as many diverse groups together as we can, to be a united force, and that's what's made Missouri the best conservation state in the nation. That we have the best citizen base, and that's given us the power. We have a science-based conservation department, which proved itself over 40 years. And then we got the expanded funding because of that 40 years. And now we're up to 85, 86 years with the Federation, and the new Department of Conservation came the next year too. I would urge the Federation to continue to promote good, strong, science-based conservation, fish, forest, and wildlife, and continue to support the Federation. Get as many new members as we can, because we're going to need it in the future. Happy anniversary, Conservation Federation of Missouri. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much, Charlie. We appreciate hearing from Charlie today, and we apologize for some of our technical difficulties, and you will be able to go out on the website if you'd like to replay Charlie's message. I think you would appreciate it. He is our one of CFM's gems. He's kind of like our own historian, and we appreciate him very much. I think from the time that I've been associated with CFM, I always found Charlie to be so helpful in his role as assistant director. He was a great mentor, and really, wrote the book on volunteerism. And so we appreciate everything that Charlie has done and continues to do for CFM. I'm also very pleased to introduce our next guest speaker, who happens to be a really dear friend of mine and a dear friend of CFM and certainly conservation. Dave Murphy. He's a past Missouri Conservation Commissioner, CFM Executive Emeritus, and life member, mentor, special person in our lives. So Dave, please share with us. And if you have a comment or two regarding Charlie, that'd be great.
I would like to begin by offering a couple of comments about Charlie Davidson and his service to our people. It's an amazing story, really. And it's so hard to capture the nature of this in video, but there's some compelling facts that just absolutely cannot be unsaid at this occasion. He and Ed Stegner 30 or 40 years together in leadership for conservation in our state. On their watch, both the design for conservation sales tax and the state park soil and water sales tax passed the first time. Neither would have passed had it not been for them. What does that mean to each of us? I put the pen to it once long ago, and it was already at that point over $2 billion in tax revenues to the benefit of our natural resources. That's an amazing investment that our people have made and reinforced by votes of approval every time it's been on the ballot. But Charlie and Ed Stegner were the architects of that and deserve eternally credit for that. That funding is what makes the wheels turn of conservation, and it wouldn't have happened without these guys.
So true.
I'd like to offer my congratulations to this wonderful organization today. And this celebration is well deserved, not only for our leaders and our members, but also on behalf of our founders, people like Ed Stegner, Charlie Davidson, others that we talked about, James T. Montgomery that Sara alluded to, who was the author of the original constitutional amendment. Let's hope that future CFMers will find encouragement in this legacy that has been earned during our 85 years of service. This is service to benefit each and every Missourian, and it's also to our bounteous and diverse nature. From the outset, there have been those among us who knew that man can build a dam, but only God can make a river. A man can cut a tree or harvest game or catch a fish, but creation requires acts beyond our knowledge and abilities. We can and must nurture and protect wild things if they're to exist in our world today. They don't happen by accident. Our influences over the earth of mankind are pervasive. We must act. We cannot protect nature simply by isolating parts of it. Active management, appropriate and effective to purpose, is required by us in every case. To implement these, it takes money and people to do anything. And in the case of agencies, institutions, and organizations like CFM, performance requires both the authority and funding. One thing we've learned over these 85 years that Lieutenant Governor Kehoe alluded to with Theodore Roosevelt, and the light went up to Teddy Roosevelt that all natural resources are finite. They're not limitless. They're not something that we can just spend without any concern for the future. There's never enough of any species to satiate the boundless desires of all humans. That was true of bison. That was true of passenger pigeons. Certainly true of many species with us today. But their protection requires us to educate and remind ourselves consistently and continually of their vital importance to each and every one of us. We've learned that such protection depends entirely on professional enforcement as well. I think it's wise for us to pause during this celebratory moment to consider what we have learned of enduring merit during these 85 years. Each of us walk this earth but once and very briefly. How will you invest your time here? I'm so very grateful for the fortune to live in this country where we have options, and such amazing options we've been provided for by those who have gone before us. I think one of the most important lessons that we've learned is that we've repeatedly learned the benefits of trained professionals who selflessly chart the course for action. Professions of forestry, fisheries, wildlife biologists, managers, protection staff, specialists in design, construction and development of myriad public access enhancements that are necessary for all of this. All sorts of electronic tools that have been developed recently. All these amazing innovations have been developed along our way just as a byproduct, and all have significant parts of their origins right here in Missouri. We've learned that it ain't over till it's over for many species and their habitats. There's always something that may and should be done now to make tomorrow, a better tomorrow, a possibility. Over these 85 years, we Americans have learned at every turn that freedom is not free. There's always a cost, a significant cost. We at CFM, like everyone else, acknowledge that there are things which none of us can individually afford, which none of us would choose to live without. Clean air, clean water, healthy and productive soils, the very foundations of our natural world and of our human society's assets. Who could have imagined Who could have imagined 85 years ago that on the same land, at the same time that our human population has nearly doubled in Missouri, we could clean up our rivers, control wildfires, develop magnificent agricultural production, and restore white-tailed deer, wild turkeys, candy geese, wood ducks, beaver, river otters, and a host of other species, now including wild elk, from being gone or disappearing to their present abundance. Of course, the answer is no one knew or even expected such success at the start. We simply knew that if we did nothing, things could only get worse. The greatest responsibility that we have as leaders is to prepare those who will follow us. Celebrate this moment and keep your eyes seeking beyond the far horizon. Act in confidence. My family and I thank you for your consideration and service.
Thank you, Dave. Very well said. Certainly your leadership and not only the Federation, but your time on the commission are just so much appreciated. And you are the ultimate conservationist in Missouri, and the state owes a debt of gratitude for all that you've done and all the service that you give, and your words today ring true in so many ways. And so thank you for your friendship, your mentorship, your beautiful article in our 85th magazine, you know, and you have the ability to see generations ahead, and that's certainly,
I'm old.
well, it's very much appreciated, very much
See,
appreciated.
we got somebody really important on right now. We'll get to that.
Thanks again, Dave. And up next, we have our president and CEO of the National Wildlife Federation, Collin is on here with us, and he's going to join us on the Zoom here live. So there he is. Take it away, Collin. Thanks for joining us and being here on this historic day.
Yeah, no, thank you, Tyler. And Dave, it's an honor to follow you, sir. You know, the work that, you know, we did together over so many years between our organizations is the thing, you know, it's just made such a huge difference. And the reason I was so excited to be with all of you tonight when Tyler invited me was that, like, I go across the country talking about Missouri being a model for the valuing natural resources, a model for the way that you fund natural resource conservation, and the work and the incredible work of conservation by design, or design for conservation, the way that you've been able to really embrace kind of across party lines that conservation is important for everybody. And, you know, I just, on behalf of the National Wildlife Federation, I just want to thank each of you that are supporters of the amazing work of CFM. You know, I mean, when I came in 5.5 years ago, the number of projects that we were already working on with CFM was amazing. And then, and I think even now, it's obviously significantly greater. You know, when I think about the leadership that Tyler and the team are providing on things like the Recovering America's Wildlife Act, the Great American Outdoors Act that, you know, fully funded the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and, you know, provided incredible resources for our national parks and national forests and national wildlife refuges and BLM lands. You know, these are bills that are incredibly important, but if there isn't that kind of support back home for members like Roy Blunt to be able to really be a champion on the Senate floor, there are things that just don't happen. And these are all bills that, you know, don't just, you know, they're not just words on a page. I mean, they're real resources for folks in Missouri. So in the case of the Great American Outdoors Act, you know, obviously bringing the Land and Water Conservation Fund to full funding, so the state agency is going to have a bunch of money, and hopefully Sara Parker Pauley will have her hands on a big chunk of that, because, you know, we all like what she does. But, you know, also the federal sites. I mean, the amount of money that could go to Mark Twain National Forest, the money that could go to, you know, helping, you know, repair the National Historic Site for Harry Truman, the colonial sites. I mean, there are real resources in this bill that are going to hopefully expand opportunities for hunting and fishing, and just enjoying the great heritage and natural resources of Missouri for years to come. One of the things I do love about Missouri and CFM is the great diversity of the kind of partners that you have across the state. And obviously, I'm pretty tight with, you know, our mutually good friend Johnny Morris, and, you know, watching, you know, bringing together industry, obviously a friendly industry, but an industry to stand up to things like chronic wasting disease, trying to make sure that, you know, the commission has the authority to make good science-based decisions, making sure that things don't get politicized too much, that, you know, your revenues are intact, that when you have to, you know, renew things like your parks sales tax and parks and water money, that those get done in big numbers. These are a big deal. And you know, I know, and maybe in Missouri, you some of these things get taken for granted. But nationally, they're a big deal. I mean, there are state directors and state wildlife federations in every state of the country that you're the envy of because of the dedicated resources and the supportive electorate that you have on so many of these issues. I know things have been tough, right? I mean, I know when changes in legislatures, there's always another kind of fight around the corner. But I just want each of you to know how special the work that you all do does, how special it is in Missouri, but also how important it is nationally. I mean, frankly, we wouldn't be in the position we're in on a lot of these major national pieces of legislation if it wasn't for the work of the whole CFM family. And it's a little bittersweet to be with you all today, and obviously it's a huge deal with our 85th anniversary. But I've also lost some great friends already from CFM, and folks like Ron, folks like Don, just legends, right? That just did incredible things. And I think the thing that I appreciate about CFM is that you always honor your history, but you're also always looking to the future. And in the fact that you've had such broad support for so long, the fact that you've had so many conservation victories, I think it's just a testament to the fact that you've had a very clear mission around conservation and engaging folks, and then just a real focus on making sure folks are better, their lives are better off across the state. More economic opportunities in the tourism economy, more recreational opportunities in the outdoor recreation space. That's a special thing. And so, as someone has the privilege of working with thousands of organizations across the country and all 52 of our state and territorial affiliates, I just can't say enough about CFM as an organization. And look, I just want to lend my thanks for all that you do. I will apologize in advance for all that I ask you to do in the years ahead, because there will be a lot coming. But I do want to think about how we frankly take some of the amazing successes that you've had and nationalize them. One, for example, the Conservation Leadership Corps work that you all do. One of the things I've been talking a lot about lately is restarting the Civilian Conservation Corps and really having at scale. I mean, we have smaller pieces of AmeriCorps and the VISTA programs and the like, but imagine taking your Conservation Leadership Corps program to scale nationwide, right? Imagine the millions of young people, right? Many of whom are out of work right now. Many of whom would love to have, the opportunity to work outdoors and get paid for it, to learn a little bit more and create and have skills that set them up for careers. That's a huge opportunity, right? An absolutely huge opportunity that we can do. And frankly, being able to point to the work that CFM's done to say, look, this is in theory, and we don't have to go all the way back to FDR, that, these are projects that we can do right now and put a lot of folks to work, doing good work. And look, let's face it, I mean, right now, almost a third of people under 30 years old are unemployed. And a whole lot of folks are furloughed that aren't going to be able to get their jobs back. And so at a time when there is a desperate need for the work, at a time when, the work is there, we need folks to have jobs and there's work to be done in the field, what better model to replicate than what you've all been able to do at CFM? I think, like, I just couldn't be prouder of the partnership we have. And the thing that's cool about it is that it's not just hunting and fishing issues, which obviously are incredibly important and front and center in our heritage, but like little things, like the work, Tyler, that we did together on monarchs, right? The exciting work and all the different partners that have come together, and that model and that kind of coalition that you've all built there has been replicated in 13 other states. The amount of work that's been done, and I mentioned chronic wasting disease before, but the lessons that CFM learned through its fight, against the captive deer industry and others, and then using that knowledge to help fight off attacks in Texas, attacks in North Carolina, in West Virginia, in Kentucky, and other places. Sharing that knowledge is just really a treasure, and something that I think CFM has always been incredibly generous, sharing their learnings and their successes with our other affiliates and other partners. I'm actually pretty optimistic. Like, I know things are kind of chaotic right now in a lot of ways. The election has a lot of uncertainty around it. But I'll just end with this. I really think that conservation over the last couple of years has proven to be one of the few areas that actually has some glimmer of hope of being bipartisan. We saw that with the Public Lands Package and the Great American Outdoors Act. There's a real opportunity in the next couple of years to bring tens of billions of dollars, if not hundreds of billions of dollars, towards conservation, as folks are looking for solutions to try to rebuild our economy. And frankly, being able to point to real successes on the ground in Missouri, having real leaders, like the governor, like Senator Blunt, like Billy Long and folks like Emmanuel Cleaver and others, Lacey Clay, I mean, obviously he's retiring, but having those opportunities, having those successes to point to is a big deal. And one of the things I'm committing to all of you is that the National Wildlife Federation is going to do everything in our power to make sure that all conversations around recovery include massive investments in restoration and resilience as a way to put a ton of folks to work and really just help enhance our natural resources to help our economy, make people a little healthier, more resilient, and really just get our economy going again. So Tyler, to you and the entire team, just a huge thank you for what you do. I am incredibly supportive. I love, every time I get a call from CFM, it's something good, which is not always the case. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our amazing Director of Conservation Partnerships for your region, Schallon, who is one of my absolute favorite members of the Federation family, who just does a great job and is singing your praises and lining up partnerships all the time. But here's to another amazing 85 years, because God, you've had a great run, but the best is yet to come. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks, Collin. Certainly appreciate your leadership and all that you do. And that guy is just a ball of energy, and he is going, and he knows all that about Missouri. He knows all that about every state too. And it's just amazing that it's just so exciting to hear the passion, and he brings that every day to his staff and his team. And so we're so appreciative of everything that Collin and Geraldine does for us, because it is exciting, and those partnerships work, and we're going to keep the ball rolling and moving down the track, and we're doing our part here. And so thank you for those kind words that you said about us, and we certainly appreciate it. We're moving on to our hour's about up. It's been a fast 45 minutes, so we're wrapping it up here. We've got one more video that we're going to show you, and it is coming from our governor of the state of Missouri. Governor Parson has a video. Was able to go up to his office a couple weeks back and record a video that we're going to share with you now.
Good evening and welcome to the 85th anniversary of the Conservation Federation of Missouri. On behalf of CFM, we're here in the governor's office today to welcome the 57th governor of Missouri, Governor Mike Parson. We thank him for all of his support, and we're here to present him with an award on this historic anniversary.
Well, first of all, Tyler, thank you for being in here to do it, and thank you for the award. On the behalf of all Missourians, I want to congratulate the Conservation Federation of Missouri on celebrating your 85th anniversary. Your long history of being Missourians' voice for hunting, fishing, and outdoor recreation has never been more critical. The constitutional authority that your organization secured back in the 1930s was push Missouri to be best in the nation in conservation and outdoor issues. I am very proud of your organization and your more than 80,000 members for being a strong voice for Missouri conservation. In these challenging times, we need nature and fresh air more than ever. Whether you're walking a trail, bird watching in a park, on a boat fishing, or out in the woods hunting deer, the outdoors is open. This year, I was pleased to sign House Bill 1711, ensuring protein-rich venison is available to our children for years to come. This legislation expands the already popular Share the Harvest program here in Missouri. Now, more than ever, we need to do our part to help feed Missourians in need. Thank you for your efforts in educating and urging Missouri politicians to expand this program. Overwhelming support from the House and Senate confirms the importance of this legislation. Please keep up the excellent work that you do in protecting and preserving Missouri's magnificent landscape, wildlife, and natural resources. And again, happy anniversary. I look forward to working with the Conservation Federation of Missouri for many years to come. Together, we can protect Missouri's outdoors for future generations of Missourians. God bless and thank you.
That was great to hear from the governor. Thank you for your patience. Again, these little technical hiccups are a learning curve for us, but gosh, this has been a great, coming on 50 minutes. I want to thank all of the presenters this afternoon for the work, the pre-work that was done to come to be a part of this celebration and share so much of our history and what we have to look forward to. So thanks to all of you. And I want to let Tyler say a word or two, and then we are going to have our toast.
Time to toast.
That's right.
Thanks, Mossie. Certainly appreciate all that you do and your leadership team and all the board and everybody, and certainly all the staff, the hard work that goes in around here. It's just very inspiring, and the volunteers too. You know, that you heard these videos tonight that so many powerful leaders across the nation, really, and in our state. We are the best, and we're proud of that, and we've got a lot of work to do, and we don't, you know, take these things lightly, and we stay after it. But it's inspiring to me. Certainly our storied history is very inspiring. Our board of directors and how much they give is inspiring. You know, our staff, what they do on a daily basis is inspiring to us. All of our volunteers and the knowledge that the committees have, and just the amount of knowledge that gives is so inspiring. And that just, you know, when we work together, we can do great things. And it takes all of us too. It really does. We can't, there's nothing we can't accomplish or overcome together when we do work together. So, you know, it's not the single most powerful person in this state, as I always say, is bigger than the smallest conservation area or the smallest state park. It takes all of us preserving our public lands and everything that we want to preserve for future generations, because that's ultimately what it's about. It's leaving it for the next legacy, and it takes all of us to do that together. So thank you, everybody that's joined us this evening, and appreciate your 85 years of commitment from all our members and board and everybody involved. So thank you.
All right, let's get our glasses and get our staff, the staff all together here. Dave and Toast. We actually have some confetti as well. But again, it's important to sometimes look back to see how far we've come. And we've come 85 years, and we have another 85 plus to go. So
Cheers.
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 Ching, ching.
Cheers. Cheers. Ching, ching, ching. Don't want to miss it. Happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Everybody, be well, stay safe, have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you all.